Yo, go. What's going on, G-Dot family? It's your boy G-Dot back at it with another banging ass video. And we finna go ahead and get straight into this wild ass video about they saying BG snitching. Ain't no way BG snitching, man. Come on now. Y'all talking about BG snitching. Birdman when he with him. If he was snitching, Gucci definitely wouldn't. Stop putting that shit on these niggas' names, man. We finna go find out the facts from end of sentence. You know what I'm saying? Mr. 1090 Jake. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Also, don't forget to follow a nigga on Instagram, WildBoyGDot, and Twitter, WildBoyGDot. Go ahead and get straight into this video. Also, don't forget to visit DRE.us so you can get the latest, hottest, newest, futuristic, hypnotic drip. Because when I say futuristic, hypnotic, that's what girls gonna think when you put it on. Because you gonna put that shit on so raw. They gonna be like, damn, this nigga dressing ahead of his time. Feel what I'm saying?
Man, what's up, everybody? Welcome
what up,
back
blood?
to another episode of EOS. It's 1090 Jake, man. I'm rocking with y'all, and y'all rocking with me. And for this video, I ain't even gonna lie. I'm disappointed I found this.
Damn.
One of the last rappers anyone would have thought would get exposed is now under investigation over snitching accusations.
On who?
Louisiana legend BG, who was just released from federal prison less than 3 months ago, is now being accused of the unthinkable. Serving 11 of his 14-year sentence, BG has been a staple for
that nigga was in jail for 11 years, bro. God damn. 11 to a 14-year sentence. You did 11 years locked up, bro. Yo, life different. The way you move different. The way you breathe different. You on some wild shit, man.
Thanks to rappers holding it down and taking their time to the chin. Interviews with former inmates would describe the rapper walking tall in general population on some of the deadliest federal prison yards. So why all of a sudden is he now being exposed? To fully understand, we'll have to go all the way back to July 16th, 2009.
Right, let's see something.
It was 7:20 p.m. and the NOPD narcotics unit was on patrol when they observed a white Ford truck traveling at a high rate of speed through the Central City neighborhood of New Orleans. Disregarding a stop sign, detectives conducted a traffic stop, finding much more than they anticipated. They would notice the occupants of the truck were moving erratically inside. Asking them to step out of the vehicle, the driver would be identified as Christopher Dorsey and more commonly known as BG. The front passenger would be identified as Darian Blunt and the back passenger as Kentrell Washington. As Kentrell stepped out of the back of the truck, a detective could observe in plain view a plastic bag appearing to contain marijuana. The bag was partially covered by a t-shirt on the back passenger seat. Washington would be detained as the detective retrieved a large Ziploc bag containing 446 grams of marijuana.
Damn.
Stepping away from the truck, the detective then observed a black barrel protruding from underneath the driver's seat. Immediately upon seeing the officer retrieve the 9mm Beretta 92 FS, Kentrell Washington would state, "That gun and weed is mine." Washington, who's a convicted felon, was then arrested and taken to the 6th District Police Station for booking. He'd again inform NOPD officers, as well as a federal ATF agent named Special Agent Dorick, that the handgun was his and that he had in fact obtained the gun from his girlfriend Trina Jones, who brought him the gun from Houston to New Orleans a month prior. Agent Dorick took possession of the handgun and marijuana while taking custody of Washington and federally arresting him. In addition, both BG and Blunt would testify that BG was driving, Blunt was the front passenger, and Kentrell was in the back. BG and Blunt would testify they were unaware there was a firearm in the vehicle, and they would both confirm the firearm was Washington's, that Washington admitted to officers the firearm was his, and that he obtained the firearm from his girlfriend. Washington would be charged the following day on one count of being a felon in possession of a firearm.
So if the folks told on himself and then they pretty much pinned it on him because he already pinned it on himself, they just going with the man. Where is he snitch at?
November 3rd, 2009. Only 3 months after Washington would be arrested, BG would find himself in the back seat of a Chevy Tahoe that was pulled over. Gerard Fedison, also known as Fetty, was driving with Damon Pollard in the front passenger. Officers observed the butt of a gun under the center console of the Tahoe before asking if there was any firearms in the vehicle. All 3 men said no. Removing the men, officers recovered a 9mm Ruger P89, a Stoga 40 cal, and an FN 5.7. All 3 guns were equipped with extended magazines. Further investigation would reveal the Chevy Tahoe they were riding in was stolen, and one of the firearms was also reported stolen. A New Orleans PD sergeant would arrive on scene when Pollard said, "The weapons are for us because they tried to jack my boy out of his jewelry," referring to BG. Pollard also stated the drugs in the car were his, as officers recovered pills inside of a Tylenol bottle. Officers spoke with Fetty, who stated he got the car earlier that day from a guy he knew as Charles. All 3 men would be placed under arrest. ATF agents would review phone calls made by Fetty in jail. The day after they were arrested, Fetty called his grandmother, who placed him on a 3-way with his girlfriend. On the recorded jail call that issues a warning saying the call is recorded, Fetty would tell her he, BG, and Pollard were at a daiquiri shop when they saw the police. Fetty said he forgot about the guns when he jumped in the truck, and when police got behind him, he closed the stash spot. Fetty said, "I keep a gun. I would rather be living than dead." He'd say he needs to talk to BG because the police report said BG threw a gun down, and he said BG's stupid for having a gun on him. The next day, Fetty would call his girlfriend telling her where he stashes guns in the truck and that Pollard doesn't have any convictions.
Sometimes these niggas do be stupid, I ain't gonna lie. That's why before you get into any street activity, make sure the nigga you doing this shit with is not stupid, because a lot of these niggas be slow. Like, slow as hell, slower than slow. And it's pretty embarrassing that you just pretty much snitched on yourself and got everybody jammed up.
His girlfriend would tell him Pollard could write a letter from jail saying the guns were his and that she could get the letter notarized. Fetty would then say he was going to get Pollard to sign an affidavit. He'd then say, "You know ain't no fucking gun was for that dude," meaning that the guns actually belonged to BG and Fetty. He'd continue on saying plenty of things he shouldn't over a jail phone before speaking with BG, as the two expressed concern over the feds picking up the case. 2 days later, Fetty would call BG, who made bond and was released from the New Orleans Parish Prison. On November 9th, Fetty told BG to get Pollard out of jail so Pollard can sign the affidavit stating the guns were his. They believed if Pollard took responsibility for the guns, then the charges against them would be dismissed, and because Pollard had no prior convictions, the punishment would be less severe. Fetty would reassure BG, telling him he always gets affidavits signed, and as soon as it's signed, he'll be out of jail. Fetty would tell BG to put money on Pollard's bond, then make Pollard hustle for the rest. November 24th, 2009. Pollard would sign the false affidavit stating Fetty and BG had no knowledge of the guns or drugs recovered from the vehicle, but witnesses would testify that BG brought him to the location and was with him when he signed the document. Furthermore, a cooperating witness would testify that BG provided money to Fetty while he was in jail and assisted in getting Pollard out of jail so Pollard could sign the fake affidavit. As federal agents continued to investigate, they discovered 3 YouTube videos of BG filmed on the same day. During these videos, BG is with several associates out on the street talking about their lives. In the first video, BG would shout out several incarcerated friends. In the second video, Fetty would pull 2 firearms while BG pulls 1, and Pollard can also be seen pulling a firearm.
Who that is?
Problems, we got this.
Well, ain't nobody. That's Fetty. That's Fetty when the 2 FAs I got the dick on one. You know, I got this here one on one. You know what I'm saying? I got that beam on this one. What? This real life shit. This real life shit.
In the third video,
Niggas be tweaking, I ain't gonna lie. Even back in the day to nowadays, niggas doing the same shit. It's just worse because you did it, like, you had to have someone come out there, record you, not look at the footage, and they didn't give a they just put it out.
BG, Fetty, and their group are still on the same corner when they start to rap about not cooperating with police and not snitching. Fetty then appears with a bandana over his face and 2 firearms, while BG can again be seen with a firearm. BG would be indicted by the feds in April of 2011 on 2 counts of felon in possession of a firearm. 1 count for the gun in the YouTube video, and another for the 3 guns in the vehicle. He'd also be hit with a 3rd count of tampering with the witness for getting Pollard to sign the fake affidavit. In August of 2012, BG would be sentenced to 168 months or 14 years in federal prison. Now, at no point within BG's sentencing transcripts would he receive any point reduction for cooperation, and at no point was there a 5K1 in his case showing cooperation. So when the actual case BG went to prison for, he never cooperated and received a hefty sentence. But BG isn't accused of actually snitching in the case he went to prison for. BG is accused of testifying in the first arrest. Back when Kentrell Washington took responsibility for the gun and the weed, saying they were his and he got the gun from his girlfriend, BG and the third man would repeat exactly what Kentrell already told the officers. The wording used in the paperwork would state, in addition, both Dorsey and Darian Blunt would testify that Dorsey was driving, Blunt was in the front passenger seat, and Washington was in the back seat. Both individuals would testify that they were unaware there was a firearm in the vehicle, and they would both confirm that the firearm was Washington's, that Washington admitted to officers the firearm was his, and that he had obtained the firearm from his girlfriend. Many have become confused on the wording of this paragraph, specifically would testify. They compared this case to Gunner, in which Gunner received a plea deal and agreed to testify if called upon, but this isn't the same for BG. Kentrell Washington never went to trial, leading many to assume BG never testified, but they would also be wrong. Within Washington's preceding transcripts, specifically page 3, his public defender Jocelyn would state, "Now Mr. Washington was the one who was charged. I think the government could clear it up more, but I believe BG was given subpoenas to appear for the grand jury in connection with this proceeding. I do not know if he was actually called to testify, but I do believe he received 2 subpoenas to come to court." The U.S. Attorney or federal prosecutor Mr. Vitas would state, both passengers that were in the vehicle were put before the grand jury. This would confirm both BG and Darian Blunt went before a grand jury. Now, a grand jury is a private proceeding used to determine if enough evidence exists to bring charges against the suspect. With 16 to 23 grand jurors present, the prosecutor will introduce evidence or call on witnesses through subpoenas to testify. After all evidence and testimony has been heard, the grand jurors will decide whether or not to indict the suspect. In this case, BG and Darian would testify the gun belonged to Washington, and the grand jury would choose to indict Washington for being a felon in possession of a firearm. But this is where the case gets tricky. BG's very own state lawyer, Frank DeSalvo, would be representing Kentrell Washington in his Fed case. According to Washington, BG's lawyer promised he'd receive 1 to 2 years at most in prison. He'd plead guilty, then withdraw his guilty plea after learning he was actually facing 6.5 to 8 years. Firing his lawyer, Washington would point out how his lawyer was also BG's, and 4 months after Washington was arrested, BG would be arrested in another case where BG tried to pay someone to take the fall. It would seem Washington was finessed, promised by BG's lawyer he'd receive minimal time, and he was willing to take the rap for the gun. It would also seem Washington, BG, and Blunt all planned on Washington being the fall guy. If we pay attention, when the officer recovered the gun, Washington immediately said the gun and weed were his while at the scene. Washington would be taken to the police station where he spoke with an ATF agent, saying his girlfriend brought the gun from Houston. BG and Blunt weren't with him when he spoke with the ATF, but BG and Blunt would repeat exactly what he said to the grand jury. With Washington realizing he was played and is facing more time than promised, he'd attempt to get new lawyers and claim the gun couldn't have been his because the barrel was showing under the front seat, meaning it must have been placed there by the driver, who was BG.
Well, it's too late then, bro. I ain't gonna lie. You can't want to take the fall, then don't get the years that you thought you was gonna hear, then start snitching like that shit, man. Niggas be stupid as hell, bro. This whole case is kind of crazy. Like, niggas be dumb.
Because BG and Blunt already testified against Washington, Washington found himself in a hole he couldn't dig himself out of. Now, this case is crazy because...
But I ain't gonna lie, he still didn't snitch, though, because folks said it was his shit, so they really just went with his story. That's all I'm getting from this right now. Folks said it was his gun. They said, yeah, it's his gun. Then he came back out after he didn't get the time he wanted to, and they was like, nah, nigga, it's too late. You already said it was your gun. That's your fault, bro. It's not my fault you're stupid. That's your fault. So, yeah. BG's free. He's not a snitch. Fuck all that shit. Cash Money record.